I have a ton of wiring to do today. This entire wall and this entire wall. So let's get started. Along the way, I'm going to show you these Wago lever nuts, and I'll explain why I'm going to be using these. They're a lot more expensive than wire nuts, but they work really good in the situation I'm going to be in. So we'll go over that stuff in a little bit. Right now, I need to turn off the power and get, 5 breakers in here and connect up these neutrals, and it's going to be dark in here while I do that. I'll put the camera on so you can kind of see it, and if it turns out too dark, we'll just toss that stuff. All right, finally done. It's a real good feeling to finally have the permanent power in here, even though I only have one outlet, or actually 2 outlets connected to it right now. I'll solve that problem by the end of the day. We'll get all 4 of those going, and we have a duplex down there, duplex over there, and some other stuff up here. I'll explain that as we go. The history of the power out here, it started with this big extension cord right here plugged into the house, and that came out, well, actually on the other side over there, and I charged up batteries and did whatever I needed to do with that. Then I had a cable hooked up to the pedestal, and that came through the grade beam here, and that hooked up to a sub panel box, and I had some outlets connected to that. I actually had 220 wiring to that, and that's what I started up my jointer with when I put this Helix cutter head in here. I still haven't jointed any wood with this yet, but we're going to solve that soon. All right, so I like to work on the hardest stuff first. And the hardest thing is going to be that outlet way in the back there. Unfortunately, I would have liked to have had this wired before I put the dust collector in place, but I had no idea exactly what was going in here. The furthest outlet is going to be the dust collector outlet, and then that's going to have a remote coming over to here, and the dust collector will be plugged into that. That bigger one is going to have duplex 20 amp outlets, and what those are for is for any blast gates, any automatic blast gates that I may put in. I can just run a cable over. The dust collection is going to go up to the ceiling. I'll be able to run wires to any automatic blast gates. That is just a pull box that'll get closed up. And then we're going to run a 30 amp circuit for the air compressor, and then we're going to have an auxiliary 230 circuit that's going to power that dust collector until I get this completely set up. That outlet over there, or that box over there, is going to have a duplex, a single duplex in it, and that will be for the dust bin indicator, the full indicator, and then I think we just have this, and I put that there in case I ever put an electric auto drain on the compressor here. So that first outlet for the dust collection here, that is a 20 amp 230, and what I'm going to do is wire that and then stick it in place and run the wires back over instead of running wires over and then trying to get it wired over there. I'm gonna pre-wire it and then push the wires back to here where it'll be a little easier to work. I gotta move this under here, and it's not gonna be easy, but it's not gonna be the hardest thing in the world either. Okay, nothing to it but to do it, so let's get going. You can kind of see what I was talking about when I wire up this outlet. These are commercial outlets, and with stranded wire, these are much better to use because you just slip the wire in and tighten it up, and it tightens behind that plate just like a breaker. But unfortunately, the outlets for, or this is actually the only outlet like that, the one for the dust collector is not a commercial outlet, and I need to put the wire around the nut. So you gotta, this is number 10 wire, so you gotta try to get it, where's my, if I had some number 10 solid wire, I would just use one of these Wagos and connect those two together and then use the solid wire on here. Oh, that actually went fairly well. But you can see that strands are trying to get away, and getting everything under that nut can be very difficult. If I have too many problems with this, I'll just do like I said and put some number 10 solid on the end of this stranded stuff. The stranded stuff is way easier to pull through the conduit, especially when you have a big conduit fill like this was. I could also solder a connector onto the end of this, but that's a little better. All right, we will be using the Wagos, and they're not the normal ones. They're made for 10 gauge wire. We'll be using them on the other end. This is a much better style of outlet. This is a commercial outlet, and as far as I know, they're rated for more plug-ins. You know, plug something in, pull it out, but they also have these clamp backs, so you just strip the wire to the right length and get it in there, and you are good to go. little bit more. You don't want to clamp onto the jacket of the wire, because then you're not going to be getting full contact. That'll work. And I will show you the Wago connectors in just a second. And these specific Wagos are made for 10 gauge. Most of the ones you see around are made for between 24 and 12. These are 20 to 10. And I only need these in a few places. Just makes life so much easier, especially with this stranded wire. Okay, now for a test. First one we'll test is this one down here, the one for the compressor, 30 amps. And both of these blacks should be hot. And they are. Okay, now we'll turn that one off. And we're going to do the dust collection circuit, and this controls that far outlet for the dust collector up here and the outlet at the bottom, which will control the mobile unit. Beautiful. I don't want to turn on all of the breakers just in case, like, the wiring was all mangled up and a couple circuits are alive. Now both of those black wires right there should be hot. Okay. Now one, 2, and 3 are for lights. 4 is the outlets up there for the blast gates, and the ones down at the bottom. Well, not at the bottom, at the bin sensor and down at the bottom. I wonder if I have... We're not showing it hot. And it's wired here. I wonder if I wired it wrong in here. If this 15 amp is it. Check it down here. It is. All right, so I just got to switch those wires around in the box there. So now this should be hot. And these outlets up here. Beautiful. Okay. So the 15 and 20 amp need to be switched. Now, well, actually, I can cover up that box now, the pull box, and we can get all of this stuff done. Connect it to the shutoff, put a duplex there, 230 outlet there, and another duplex there. All 20 amp. Good, good, good. Just to be sure, let's double check this. The unmarked wire, which would be this one right here, should be hot. Beautiful. Okay, so that's all good. And everything is off except for these two. good news and bad news. If you saw the last video, I was thinking that they're not going to make a Decora and normal switch cover, but they do. So I'm going to get this on in the next video. Oh, I need a switch for that too. I'm missing 2 switches here, a switch there, and my 230 outlet for down there. I thought I had everything, and I thought it was really cool that I found this, but it is what it is. I'm gonna have to end this video. I did get all of the stuff with these Wago connectors. Wago, I believe it's Wago. Wago just sounds too goofy. But you can see we got a 5 connector, 3 connector. They make 2, 3, and 5 connectors, and they make 2 different versions of them. I believe I said that before. One of them goes down to 10. It goes from 20 gauge to 10, and the other one goes, I believe it's 24. Yeah, 24 gauge to 12 gauge. And I believe these are cheaper, and normally that's pretty much all you would use. The big 10 gauge wire is for these big 2 horsepower and 3 horsepower motors. So in the next video, I'm going to go get all this stuff, or have my daughter do it, and then the next video I'm going to wrap things up. One thing I'm really glad to have done is all the breakers are in place, so now all I have to do is come over here, flip a breaker on, do my testing, come back, flip it back off, and when we do the rest of this stuff, well, I got to test all of this stuff. I got to test all 3 of the 3-way switches, and when I get those in, I have to test those, I have to test the outlet there, and all of this stuff. So the next video, I'll get a lot of this installation done off camera, and then we'll go around and get this stuff tested. So make sure you stop back to see that.